everybody, to another edition of the In the Paint Show, episode 149, presented by Ballislife. I'm here with my co-hosts Chelsea Hopkins and Umana. Back at it again. Guys, how are you doing? Chelsea, glad you're back with us. I know you've been busy playing games, logging in those full games, full minutes, no break on the bench. How are you doing?
Well, Happy New Year, guys. Happy to be back. I'm tired. We had a tough overtime loss last night, and now I need 3 days off. That's the problem with being a vet. You play a game, you do the best you can. I was 1 rebound shy of a triple-double. We lost by, I think, 4. And now I can't walk. I couldn't walk all day today. I iced 3 times, and I'm going to have to pull the vet card and take probably tomorrow off so I can recover and be ready for next week. So it's hard out here, guys, but I'm making it. How are you, Ani?
I'm doing good. You got 3 more years left. I don't know why you keep saying that you're tired.
Like that, Ani was like ready to jump in. Like, I don't think this. No.
Yeah, no, she got 3 years left. Like I'm telling you, she does.
10 years was not enough for you. That was the goal. This is year 10. I'm 32. It's over.
Yeah, like you can go till you about 35. You got it. But no, I'm doing good. It's good to have you back, Chelsea. I'm kind of like you. I played in the men's league actually, and I couldn't walk the next day. And I was like, "Dang, this is how it feels to play when you're 30," and I'm not going to do that again. I applaud you for doing a whole season. I could not. I did 1 game, and I couldn't run back on defense. So, but no, everything's been good. Just been working at it, same old stuff. So, glad to have the show with all 3 of us again.
Definitely. We're just going to talk about a lot of topics, obviously. High school basketball, at the forefront, but there's so much going on and so much going on away from the game of basketball. Chelsea, what is the weather like in Israel at this time of year? Because right now in California, we're getting slammed with rain. We say we need rain, then we get so much of it. We don't, it hurts people. There's evacuations in certain parts of Northern California, and in Santa Barbara, I went to college. Once in a while, it really pours in Santa Barbara. It's like the first time. But they have massive flooding.
Yeah, actually, I've heard about that. I've been seeing on Twitter, and I think Bron tweeted last night just about how he felt like he was back in Ohio with the crazy weather that you guys have been getting. But Israel's nice. I mean, for the most part, like there's like, maybe 2.5 months of cold here, and even cold right now is not that bad. Like we're probably like in the low 50s. Definitely need a jacket. Last year was actually like the coldest winter that they had in 20 seasons. And that's when we got into the maybe low 30s or whatever. But for now it's okay, light jacket, light hoodie. I'm actually up north, so it's a little colder just up here, since we're about an hour and 15 minutes away from Tel Aviv, but better than the weather in Cali for sure, so I'll take it.
I think people are a little like, wow, California is usually always sunny, and then we can't handle it when we get rain. It's just like it just clogs up the roads. It just comes to a standstill. We're not very good with that, obviously. But yeah, Santa Barbara, when I was going to college there, so it was 1998 was the last time they really had floods. Like the streets were 5-6 inches of water. People were canoeing down them. Like I remember that vividly. It was in 1998, and it's happening again. Like I guess once in a while, just goes crazy. But yeah, it's all hillside, nice homes.
Sure.
Montecito, which is a really wealthy area, is like completely evacuated. It's very nice there. It's just very nice, very expensive. And we'll see. Hopefully the damage is minimal, but there's been a lot of things going on in terms of damage. Obviously, this incident with Damar Hamlin, we talked about it a little bit on last week, and seems like a lot of good news there. Like he's released and he's back in Buffalo. Obviously, he plays for the Buffalo Bills. It seems like the hospital there in Cincinnati did a great job, or he has really good things to say in terms of his family and him saying the treatment was good. But are you a little surprised, or are you just like, wow, he's left already and he's like back in his home city and he's responding on social media? Obviously, he's got to move on with his life. But like, are you surprised that happened, or like, is that just obviously a great thing, or like, is it like, hey, what happened? Like, we're not knowing what happened yet.
Honestly, I'm just happy for him. I'm just happy he's alive, and he can get out and he can go to see his family, and move around. He's just alive. Like I'm just happy for him. Am I surprised at how quick it went? For sure. But I'm just happy for him. Like, I'm happy that he can move on with his life and he's going to get paid fully. You know what I mean? Like, so it's that's another thing that I'm just happy for him that he's going to get his money and he can go on to the next phase of his life.
Sure.
Yeah, and Ani, just obviously, I'm happy that this young man is doing well too, on his way to recovering, released from the hospital. I think all that stuff is amazing. But just as I've been kind of following the story, it kind of leads to other interesting topics like surrounding the sport. Like me being a professional athlete, I am not signing a contract unless it's guaranteed and medically I'm covered. So as I've been learning more about the NFL, you sign these contracts, they're not fully guaranteed. If you get hurt, then they place you on injury reserve and then they cut the salary in half. And football's the most dangerous sport that there is. So for me, I'm just having a hard time understanding. I kind of knew about the non-guarantee before, but when you have incidents like this, then it brings stuff like that to the forefront. And I'm just kind of, I don't understand why these athletes aren't covered. A lot of them suffer from CTE after playing several years in the league, if they're fortunate enough to make it that long. The NFL came out and made some announcement like they're doing this young man a favor of fully guaranteed his salary, when I feel like that's something that should go without saying, considering the danger, of the sport. So I just kind of wanted to get your guys' opinion. Yes, obviously we're all grateful that, he's better and he's released from the hospital, but it's just like, this just seems like this is something that has to change, and that you basically have to die or almost die on the football field to get the money that should be owed to you. Like, what do you think about that, Ronnie?
I'll take it from two standpoints, and then we go back and forth, because I have to. If I'm an owner, or if I'm like looking at from you as a fellow, like an athlete, a person who plays, you played 10 years pro. So if I'm looking at it as an athlete, I want to have a guaranteed, and I want to have better protection. So my question to you, Chelsea, how far should they go, like on the picket line, till it gets done? Not play, because you got to remember, like you said, they're not guaranteed. So if they don't play, how many weeks and months and years can they go where they're not bringing in the money that they've been bringing in? We're like, okay, I got to go back and play. You see what I mean? So it happened before 1987. The NFL had a strike, a big strike. And some players crossed the picket lines after like 8 weeks or whatever it is. People were throwing eggs at the bus. The players were fighting with the scab players. They get off here, like in the parking lot, like, get out of here, you guys are scabs. It was a really big thing. So from the player standpoint, how long can the players hold out? They obviously got to fight for it, the Players Association. What do you think there, Chelsea? Like, do you think they should go balls to the wall till it's done, guaranteed contracts like other sports, or like they have to make just the successions, have to get what they can get?
Well, maybe you guys can educate me a little bit. Like, how much is guaranteed? I know it's not fully guaranteed, but I think it should be, a decent amount, because I just feel like every night that you step on the field, there's that risk of getting hit the wrong way. Like, Damar was, what is he, 24 years old? Yeah. And he just kind of got hit in the right spot and, had to be resuscitated on the field. So you guys can educate me. I'm not really sure in terms of if he has this full contract for 300 and what did they say, 3.5 mil or something like that, how much he would receive and how much gets knocked off with the injured reserve. But I just feel like there has to be some type of protection. Like, from a medical standpoint, anything that he suffered directly on the field, I feel should 100% be taken care of and covered. And that should go for, whatever physical rehabilitation he may need, hospital bills, because him being a young player and him not having that fully guaranteed contract, let's say something life altering did happen to this young man and he needed to be hospitalized or, go through extensive years of rehab, would he be able to cover it? Like most think about regular people, like regular day-to-day people cannot afford medical bills. So here I am, I get cracked on the field and, my salary got split to a quarter of it. And now I have to live this way for the rest of my life and be, flooded with bills. So I'm not really sure, speaking how much is guaranteed. But I think that there has to be some type of clause. There has to be some type of guarantee for maybe specific incidents. And this type of incident doesn't happen all the time where we see somebody actually needing CPR, but we do see these injuries and we do see people that kind of go crazy that we can pinpoint that used to play in the league. I think
Yeah.
when I attended San Diego State, they always talked about Junior Seau and how he like kind of went crazy from football and just being cracked all the time. And they wanted to run some tests after he actually passed away to see if they can kind of make that correlation. But the constant trauma for some of these people is life altering, even if it doesn't end up with you in the hospital. So that's why I just feel a way about it, because, I just feel like you have that risk every single night, and all it takes is one kind of bad play to change you for the rest of your life.
I think when you talk about guaranteed contracts with that many players, with that money, obviously, and this is just me looking at a business standpoint, like as an owner, like I would have to lower the amount of, if it's a fully guaranteed contract, I have to lower their salary, right? Because yes, it is a dangerous sport, but you're talking about how many players run, like 54, 55 players on a roster. You're not even talking about practice. Now you're talking about practice squad. So they're all getting fully guaranteed contracts. And let's say their salary is what they are today. Like, you need to lower their salary in order for it to go fully guaranteed, so the owners can have some, from a business standpoint. So like, it's one or the other. Either I lower my salary and it's fully guaranteed, or it's not guaranteed. I try to take care of my body, meet the incentives, meet the requirements, don't get hurt, and hopefully I can make more money. It just depends on which way they would have to go about it. But it's a tough deal, because you're talking about in basketball where there's 15 like on a pro roster, like, well, you're talking about anywhere from 13 to 15, sometimes 17, depending on like the injury reserve. Like some teams can have more because like guys are hurt and they have an exception, but 17 to 54, 55 plus practice squad is a big difference.
Right. Plus that too, Ani, and then another thing, it's pretty crazy, like you say, the business point. We'll start with we talked about the player standpoint a little bit, Chelsea, and we're talking about the business. Is he's not, as a 24-year-old, you mentioned, he's in his second year, he's not eligible for any pension. So technically the NFL don't have to do anything for him. Like, he has to get another job, or like you said, he has to figure out a way to cover his bills if they don't. I think from the PR standpoint, and from just because his case is so unique, they're going to help him, I'm sure, in some kind of way. But technically, legally, as to Ani was saying, they don't really have to. He hasn't played. They own a little under $2 million over the next 2 seasons as part of his rookie deal. And he's not considered a veteran, so, to qualify for the league's pension. So there's been some things done about that. We kind of mentioned a little bit that in the Raymond Lewis episode about ABA players and NBA players from the past. And many of them will just flat out say it. And I think NFL players have shared the same sentiment. The NFL and or the NBA is just waiting for those dudes to die, in essence. They're just literally, like, that's how they feel. Now, obviously, nobody has said that. Not like they said, oh, yeah, but that's how they feel. Like we're 60 years old. We're we have crippling diseases. The NFL doesn't care. They're just waiting for us to die. It's even happened with that concussion, huge concussion settlement. When it came down to it, and when they broke it all down, each player or each former player, it wasn't life altering. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what you were talking about a little bit earlier with some of the things with Junior Seau and that. And again, back to Adi's point, Chelsea, when you have 15 players in a basketball team, and then you have, let's just use the number 55 in football. So I guess the average person wouldn't really recognize this, but the average career is 3 years. Mm-hmm. So if you get guaranteed, then now if I'm the owner, I'm probably saying, okay, it's going to be a 1-year guarantee. I'm signing you guys to a contract every year over and over and over. I think that's what would happen, Chelsea, or something like that. Maybe a 2-year deal if you're a quarterback or some really valuable player. Because if your average career is 3 years, why am I going to sign a backup player to a guaranteed contract for 4?
Right.
It's not going to. Again, they're going to have to meet somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean? And
I'm hoping, at least with the the Players Association, that they can at least just make some type of clause, whether it's like workers' comp or when unprecedented stuff happens. I'm not talking about somebody tearing their ACL, something that, it's the nature of the sport. It happens, whatever. But like something that's just life altering, I just feel like there has to be some type of exception. Yeah. And I understand that there's so many players that, but to your point though, I'm kind of curious, would the players rather have, lower salaries with fully guarantees than have, the potential to make more money and with a non-guarantee? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
How many players can you think of anybody that maybe had a big time contract that didn't, meet the requirements and get all their money? Like, what
It
do you think?
happens a lot because you hear these big contracts, Chelsea, especially with quarterbacks,
Right.
and they don't get all the money at the end. It's just what they announced. You know what I mean? They get a huge signing bonus at the beginning, and then maybe they get cut. They don't finish the 10-year deal. You hear, oh, this quarterback got a 10-year deal for $200 million. It's not guaranteed. It's just what they signed for. You know what I mean?
Right. And there's incentives in that as well.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Because the careers are different. So let's talk about the dirty little secret that we all know. It's, and Chelsea, maybe you haven't thought about it. I know, Ani, you probably know it. And it's when you have a Giannis or you have Luka or you have one of those type of guys in a basketball team, that makes the huge difference. That even makes the value of your franchise go up. The average NFL player can just be replaced, and the average fan won't know. So what I mean by that is like an outside linebacker. Yeah, if you're an outside linebackers coach or you're a in-depth fan, you'll say, hey, that guy's better than that guy, and that's affecting our run defense. But the average fan doesnment know that. The average NFL player is just replaceable unless you're Tom Brady, one of those type of guys. Like you're replaceable. So again, your value's down. So that's why the contracts are not guaranteed. Every team has 6-7 DBs. What's the difference between the 6th and the 7th one?
True.
It's minimal. Like again, his position coach knows, and that's the difference. And again, that's why it's pretty amazing. Flipping the subject a little bit, it's like how crazy Tom Brady is good for 20 years. Like that's insane. Yeah. Even same with LeBron, it's insane. The average career is 3 or 4 years long. Like it's unbelievable. Like for him to win 7 Super Bowls, you can see his value. But I think the average fan, with that many players, doesn't see the value of the average football player. It's the same thing. Like when I played in high school football, I was the 5th DB. I was the nickel back, and I guess there was a little difference between the 6 DBs, my buddy Rafael, who's my buddy, Rafi, and the guy in front of me who was the starter over me, like Rodolfo. Like he's a good player, pretty good player. Like there's not much difference. If I would have had a start, our team wouldn't have just been desolate. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But in a basketball team, if you get a guy who's like, damn, we got a new player on the team, it's like it's making a hell of a difference. So. Yeah, I think that's the thing there and it sucks because as we look at the glory of football, we look at how popular the game is. It's the most popular American game by far. Like people don't really talk about that dirty secret. You know what I mean? Like, and it's going to continue. Again, I don't know, Chelsea, do you think I'm with you? I think there should be like a Damar Hamlin rule or something where like if you have a debilitating injury, you get your full medical. If you have some kind of really debilitating injury on the field or caused by football. That's it, but what do you think about them striking or like, hey, we need to change this? Can the Damar Hamlin situation change this, or is it just going to be business as usual?
I mean, business as usual with the NFL. You saw they wanted to keep playing the game. Hey guys, time for the warm up, and we're back on the field. Like, it's definitely going to be business as usual. But I hope that this opens eyes. Like I said, you can't change the system completely and how it's working. So I'm not necessarily advocating for that. And I am a little bit, not informed as I should be as far as how football contracts work, but there has to be some type of clause. There has to be some type of exception. I think just for the nature of the game, it's way too dangerous, way too physical. My football friends used to always say, well, basketball is a contact sport, but football is a collision sport.
Sure.
So just the way that the game is played, it's just unique in that aspect. So I just would like to see some type of protection if something crazy were to happen. And like I said, I'm not talking about an ACL tear or, that type of injury. I'm talking about something that's life altering,
Yeah. And, Hamlin, the Bills could have cut his salary from $825,000 to $455,000 because he's been on injured reserve now, obviously, but they didn't do that, which kudos to them. Obviously this is a crazy occurrence. He signed a 4-year deal, $3.6 million, $160,000 signing bonus salary, Chelsea, and $160,000 guaranteed. So again, when you hear 4-year 3.6, you think in terms of basketball, that's a pretty good side. Then you look at the details, it's like he got $160K. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, it's tough. Again, he's a DB. You know, like they're not going to pay him this big old crazy money, and you know, I'm glad he's doing better, at least a little better in the 6 or 7 days that it happened. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that changes. And it's funny because they talk to old NFL players, and NFL players know the dangers. They know, like you said, Chelsea, some of them are living very hard lives, bad, you know, headaches, crippling, can't even move very well. And they're like, "Would you do this again?" They're like, "Yeah, I'll play. I would play football again." You know,
That's
it's
crazy.
Yeah, it's just crazy how that works, and you know, it's unfortunate, but. We'll keep an eye on that and see how it goes, and hopefully he just continues to get better. It's awesome that people rallied around him, and I know his like toy donation drive or his fundraising went crazy. Like,
yeah, that was dope.
Yeah, that's cool, you know, and people know more about him, you know, and like you said, hopefully people know more about the average football player's plight because it's not that pretty, you know. You mentioned Junior Seau, Chelsea, and obviously he is like San Diego. When you think of San Diego football, that's the first name you're going to think of. Like when he's at USC, they had a you know, a 2 deep linebacker core. So that's about 10 guys. 6 of them got playing time. Obviously 3 started. They were in a 4-3 defense and 3 of them started. 5 of them have died before the age of 50 years old. And it's crazy. They went, one guy's named Scott Ross. He was like a really good player. His wife said he just completely lost it. He was just violent, and people even told me, because Scott Ross is from Southern California, and it was like, Ronnie, Scott is doing really bad. And they knew we followed his high school career, and they're like, he's gonna kill somebody or he's gonna kill himself. And sure enough, they told me that 10 years ago. This was like in 2010, and like about 2 or 3 years ago, he passed away. So these guys are not that old. You know, they're all Junior wasn't that old. And like, there's 5 of them that have already passed, and all of them almost the same type of story.
Yeah.
Hard to adjust after football. Had a hard time adjusting after football. Lived kind of normal for a while, got married or married their college sweetheart a while, and then completely lost it like maybe 7 or 8 years in after that. Yeah. It's the same pattern of story. Now, again, the details are different, but it's the same story. And it's funny. My photographer who's worked with us for a long time, Scott Kurtz, he was shooting a volleyball event, and he saw Junior Seau 1 week before that all that incident happened with him driving, and he was at a volleyball event watching his daughter play, and Junior just quiet. You would think nothing was wrong. Like, you know, he was just sitting there. He's not vocal. He's very quiet. And people, I mean, you know, Junior, they kind of recognize him, but people weren't, you know, rushing him or saying hello to him. They didn't really know him that well, but the photographer did. So I always remember that because he's like, man, Ronnie, he just looked normal. Like nothing was wrong, you know, and you just never know. So, speaking of that, let's switch tunes of never knowing. You know, what do you guys think about like just never know what's going to happen in the NBA? Like, is that awesome? Chelsea, we'll get your opinion. Like, this offensive explosions, and then we've been talking about durability and adjusting the life after to sports. You know, the durability issue is the players taking a day off. There's been a lot of talk about these players not playing 82 games or not even come close to it. You know, well, that's why they're so good and skilled. That's why they're preparing for the playoffs. They're ready to go. Or do you think it's a detriment and like this is not what it should be, or like it's just, or do you think it's just great for the fans?
I mean, well, as far as those explosions go offensively, I think that the shot making and the creativity and the skill is at an all-time high. Like, I don't think that we can kind of dispute that. You know, just I don't want to say it's becoming like watered down, but it's becoming like super common that somebody scores 50 or like 60 on the night.
Yeah.
So I think that like it's exciting to see in the moment, but you know, obviously the game has changed a lot. Like it's very much offensive oriented. All the games that I, you know, happen to catch or see are in the 120s every single night. So not too much like defense is going on. And I think that that's a trend that we've seen in the NBA for the last several years going into the playoffs. Like I know a lot of people that say, you know, I don't watch NBA until the playoffs start because that's when people start playing better defense. That's when you see all the stars are engaged and they're there. So I don't think it's great that, a lot of the stars are taking, multiple days off. But I understand it. I mean, being a professional athlete, like I'm playing 30 games and I'm playing once a week. So if I'm in the NBA and I'm playing a back-to-back, or I'm playing Monday, then Wednesday, then Friday, Saturday, like it is hard. It is taxing.
Sure.
So although, maybe training and medical and all those things, progressively get better and probably are more advanced than what we've had like back in the day. I think everything just kind of evolves. And this is just the way that the league is going. This is the way that players are approaching the game. Like most people aren't playing 82 games. And I think 82 games is too much, me personally. Although, people like to say, well, Jordan was playing 82 games like all the time. Well, that's fine. Right now, we're not doing that. Like it's and I am super biased because, like I said, I'm just a player, so I just understand that how I feel, playing one day, and even them thinking that I'm going to play the next day. I just talked to you guys about how I felt like I got hit by a truck because I played a game last night.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard. I don't think it's always fair because. I know fans, pay to see certain people and it's the highlight of them not necessarily seeing their home team, but, catching a Laker game and catching LeBron or catching Kawhi. Like, so I understand that part from a business standpoint, but this is the way that the league is evolving. And I think it's just something that we kind of have to go with, me personally.
Gotcha.
History is kind of repeating itself. And like, so I went and watched and looked at box scores like at games in the 50s and 60s. You're like, oh, why are you doing that? But like those games were going to 120s and 130s, like where people were saying this is brand new, but this is something that happened, early on with the ABA and the NBA. But I do agree with you, Chelsea, that 50-point games are becoming normal. A guy that gets 35 points, 35 and 10, it's just like, oh yeah, like I think Jeremy Grant had 39 or something. Everyone's like, oh, okay, like, or it's just normal. Like Luka getting 30, 10, and 10 is normal. That's wild. But I mean, even saw a stat where it's like Domantas Sabonis comparing his stats to Chris Webber. And I'm just like, it's like you can't compare. Like, those are two different times. Like, doesn't mean Sabonis is better than Webber. It just, if Webber played in today's game, he would be putting up those numbers even better. Like, but it's just, I feel like we're going back to how basketball was. Like, we were in the early times, it was 120, 130s. It was seeing Chamberlain get 50, 10, and 10, and stuff like that. So it just for me, it's interesting because this isn't the first time. It just now is televised, and the NBA and basketball is such a huge has such a huge market. But we're going back to how it was in the early stages.
Yeah, and it's just people are going to adjust. And to your point, Ani, a triple-double used to be a big thing. You know what I mean? And now it's like Russell Westbrook has made the triple-double something else. Like it's just all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and now so averaging 20 is different. I'm looking at this list of guys averaging 20. If I'm reading this right, there's 44 guys averaging 20. That's a lot. Franz Wagner, Tyrese Halliburton, Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Poole, Terry Rozier is averaging 20.
See, I didn't know that till actually this morning.
He's a bucket.
Tyler Hero is averaging 20.2. I'm just looking at the different numbers. Kyle Kuzma's averaging 20 points in Washington. Like, these guys are 20-point a game scorers. Like, they don't all look like 20-point a game scorers to me. But I get, again, my mind is trapped in another time sometimes, But I get it to you what you guys are saying, and I think. Overall, like you said, Chelsea, I think it is not the greatest thing, but it's fine. We'll adjust.
Right.
I went to 3 straight Chicago Bulls games early in December. I went to 3 of them. It was a West Coast swing, so I got a chance to see them. So they played at Utah, they played in Phoenix, and then they played at Sacramento. And I was able to see them back to back right away. And your transition defense is not good. I'm like, no, this is terrible. Like, come on, guys, get back. I'm screaming, to myself. I'm like, God, here's another bucket. So Devin Booker had 50 points in 3 quarters, and then they pulled him. So I'm not surprised Donovan Mitchell honestly had 70 points against the Bulls, because I can see where they can be the team to like give up that. They just, again, they have good players. Zach LaVine had some good games. You know, Damar got kind of pulled his hamstring or pulled his groin the other night, last night, I believe that was.
That was last night, yeah.
In against Boston, but like these guys don't take the, like you said, the fervor, like they don't really take it to the next level to get back on defense and really lock down on defense. And maybe it'll change in the playoffs if they get there. But like you said, Chelsea, certain teams are, but like it was a little frustrating. I was like, come on, guys, like you're better than this. Overall, like as players, they are better than that. So I don't know if it's just something that, like you said, Chelsea, just a regular season game. They kind of get it, or they'll pick it up at the end of the game, or maybe we can beat this team without it, because they beat the Utah Jazz, which was a good win for them at that time. And then they just completely got blown out by Phoenix. They just, I mean, they just didn't even have it. They had no response. They got killed. So, I think to your point, I think it'd be a little bit better defense, but I think the teams that are going to win are going to, the ones that are either have a few quarters where they know they got to pick it up, or a few stretches, or like, hey, on this homestand, we really got to pick it up, or as we're getting closer to the playoffs. But yeah, overall, it's not, I don't see like these great scorers. I just see overall average defense. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm different. Maybe
you're absolutely right. Like the game planning is different. Like these coaches aren't going to. I thought watching the Knicks and the Bucks last night, I saw some playoff level basketball just with how the Knicks were guarding Giannis. I mean, Giannis, I think, only had 20-some points. It didn't have a lot of attempts. The way they were helping inside and everything and making them tough. You see a couple NBA games where it's like, okay, I'm not saying the coaches aren't coaching, but they're throwing some different stuff out to really slow down the guy, to prepare, like maybe we'll see them in the second round and stuff like that. But like to your point, Ronnie, transition defense is horrible. Half court, like they're not with how they're guarding ball screen coverage, they're not adjusting, and they really don't care to adjust because they know they can go back in the other end and score. Like they're just being vanilla with their approach and throwing some stuff here and there just to see what may work. But to Chelsea's point, you know, when it gets to the playoffs, they're going to throw more stuff, and you'll see more 100-point games, 90. Doubt you'll really see 80s, but like 100, 110 to 90-point games compared to 120, 130. Like, you know, like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander right now is like averaging close to 30 points a game. You know, Oklahoma's not going to make the playoffs, but like I don't think they will. But like if they did, he's not averaging 30 in the playoffs. You know, like as talented as he is, but they're going to throw so many different things at him when it comes to playoff time. So just to your point of like game planning is going to be so much different come playoff time. Yeah.
I'm looking at the stats right now. 30.9 points a game for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah,
that boy is cold though.
He's nice.
I just want to make a quick comment. Like, you know, being a player, like I watch the game like a little bit differently than most fans would. So I can see how it can be like kind of watered down for them. But like for me, just, you know, watching the shot making and the different ability to score in certain ways, like to me, it's never been about how much you score, but how you score. So that's why I'm entertained. Like, you know, wow, Shai did that. Like, you know, Shai's one of my favorite players to watch. Darius Garland, one of my favorite players to watch because they're crafty, they're shifty. Like these are tough baskets. Everybody's 30 is not the same 30 though. And we see that with KD a lot of times. I feel like, you know, you look at KD and Kyrie stats, and as credible as Kyrie is, like KD can get 30 on 16 shots. Like a lot of people can't do that. So I kind of look at like some of the nuances of the game and not so much as, oh, he had 50 points, he had 70 points. You know, I'm kind of just looking at what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I think certain players, like, you know, to KD's point, like he can give it to you any way you want it. Like you want fades, you want threes, you want, you know, mid post, you want, you know, so that's kind of what keeps me thoroughly like entertained. And, you know, that may not be the case for the fans, but you know, you have to respect that, especially if you're a player, you just like, that was a tough basket or a tough move. And then maybe I want to emulate something that I saw, you know, in my practice the next day. So I look at it like that.
Yeah, I seen that because I was watching, like I said, those Bulls games, and I'm watching Damar because I've watched Damar since he was 7th grade. You know what I mean? So it was funny. It was the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy. It was at Modern Day, and they had the college players and they had the high school players,
Mm-hmm.
and Damar was bunched in with the college players. And honestly, he was basketball skill wise was not great. He was just running, jumping, dunking, transition then. And then I look at his game now, what is this, 15 years, 14 years later, whatever it is. And it's like, he's so much more efficient.
Right.
That's your point, Chelsea. I'm like, this guy's not moving when he doesn't need to. He gets to his spot. He just, gets him with the head fake, gets to his spot in the key, foul or bucket. Like, he's so efficient. He's not wasting any energy. He doesn't run when he doesn't need to. And he just gets into his spot, knows where his shot is, and he does a great job of letting the ref kind of know, I got fouled there. And he gets the calls a lot now because he's a veteran or whatever. He's one of the better players. But that, like you said, that's what I'm watching. I'm like, wow, that's pretty. How much better he's gotten. Again, he doesn't dunk like he used to or run and jump like he did when he was at Compton High School. But it's just that he's so good at what he does. And I think that's your point. You appreciate how good somebody is. So. Do you guys think the fans kind of know that, or do you think they're just cheering because it's a spectator sport, or do they kind of say, hey, wait a minute, to your point, Ani, that's terrible transition defense. That's 3 or 4 times in a row. We're not getting it. Where do the fans stand on this? Are they going to turn on this scoring, or is it just going to be, hey, business as usual? The fans love it. There's dunks, there's plays, there's 30-point games from these. I think
fans, they like the highlight. So I think they're always going to continue to love these scoring outputs. It's something to talk about. It's something to, if I'm going to go pay money to go watch a Mavs game, I want to see Luka get 40, 10, and 15. I don't, in the way that he does it, just watching Luka play, or go to a Brooklyn Nets game and go watch KD and just the way he scores, or Shea, you want to pay as a fan. Fans pay to see that. So I think they do notice it, and they have fun with it because it's just new. It's something new with just how many people are scoring like that and the way they're doing it. Like you said, Chelsea, the way he gets his buckets is live. It's fun. I saw him early in the season. I'm like, yo, this is he took his game to a whole nother level. And I think fans understand that too. I think fans see that and they enjoy that.
Yeah. Speaking of that, as we get to the All-Star game, it's in Salt Lake this year. Anything you guys see that any guy that should be on there that's surprising you? Chelsea, I'll start with you, or any player that man, I hope this guy makes it, or he really deserves to make it. Besides the obvious, is there anybody that's really surprising you out there?
I mean, there's some people on the list that are getting votes that, kind of make me chuckle. I don't know if they're going to really be all-stars or not, but, Austin Reeves is getting votes. I know Derrick Rose is well, I really like Austin Reeves. Obviously he's not an all-star, but, the fact that, the fans are taking note and kind of voting for him. Same with Derrick Rose. He's received a lot of votes, and he's kind of a shell of himself in terms of just player and what he used to be.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to, I guess I'm more interested to know about the starters, put it that way. I think it's very close. I was looking at the East, kind of votes and standings. You have Joel Embiid, Giannis, Tatum, and Kevin Durant, all kind of neck and neck in terms of votes and stuff like that. But one of them can't start. So that's kind of going to be the most interesting thing to me, is to see how, obviously they're all going to be all-stars, but just to see kind of where they fall in line in terms of starting. And, what are we going to kind of move past, positions, and, maybe we can start a couple of them, even though they're similar positions. You know what I mean? That's kind of more intriguing to me. A lot of the same people are always going to be voted all-stars. So like you talked about, just the obvious, LeBron James, I believe, is leading in the West, and, those kind of players go without saying. But I think what makes it interesting is just to see where they fall, on the chart in terms of starting, and maybe if we see a couple new people creep in. When I look at the East, maybe Jalen Brunson, who's been hooping, maybe Tyrese Halliburton, who, that one, I can't remember his name, but commentator was just talking about how he's a wannabe all-star, but
Wally Zerbiak.
You said that, Wally Zerbiak?
Yeah, Wally Zerbiak. Well, Wally Zerbiak said want to be all-star. He was dissing him. He had to apologize.
Yeah. I think that felt a little personal to me. I don't know why, but it did.
It did, because I think it's more of a Brunson. I think he's, Nick's got You know, he played for the Timberwolves for the longest, but like, I think it was more of a Jalen Brunson. How like if Halliburton gets a spot, does that mean Jalen Brunson doesn't? I think it was a little deeper than that. That's why I got personal.
Let me ask you this, guys, because I saw something like that, but with it would had to do with the dirty player from from Duke on the Bucks.
Grayson Allen.
Grayson Allen.
It's Grayson Allen, and it's Eddie Johnson, who's a former player, and he's a good former player at the Suns. Like, he's always on social media, like, see this play? I look at it, that's terrible. And look at this guy, you can't excuse that. And so is there anybody, like you guys said about Wally Zerback, is there like, who is the former player or announcer that you guys like to just follow on social media that he has good points? I now, because I keep seeing Eddie Johnson's tweets, I'm like, this dude is just on his head, like he's on Grayson Allen's head. So
I just like JJ.
What do you like?
I just like JJ Redick because you know he does look at it.
Yeah,
he's more. He talks about the basketball and not as much of the fluff, right? Yeah. And he just makes really good points. I really like listening to JJ Redick, and he gives a perspective on the player side, which you know I think that's good to see how players think in certain situations and just you know when stuff happens. So I like listening to JJ Redick.
Yeah. How about you, Jess?
I think JJ's great too, and I just like you know how Ani touched about this, the player's perspective. Like a lot of times he's talking about his personal experience. Like, hey, I guarded LeBron. You can't tell me that he can't do this, this, and that because you know I was there. I was there for it. But my absolute favorite people to watch is just the TNT crew with just Shaq, Chuck, like because they're just entertaining. They're funny. To me, they're very direct and kind of their opinions and what they believe. And you know, being Hall of Famers, it's like, what can you tell me? I'm not hating on you. That's Shaq's favorite thing to say. I can't hate on you when I was better than you. So if I think you stink or whatever I have to say about you, my opinion is valid. And they're just super funny. Like they mock everything. They were mocking, you know, Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless's little altercation that they had the other day. And they keep it lighthearted, but they also, there's a lot of truth to the stuff that they say, even though they're being funny. So I like them the most. Jokes.
Yeah, definitely. You know, there's too much of that. I would tell you guys this though, probably like the mid 90s up into the early 2000s, Sports Center and that type of recaps of games was awesome. Like people would even watch it back to back. I remember even a rapper said that, like, I watch Sports Center back to back.
Oh, all the time.
You just watch it again. Like this it's gone so bad in the last 5 to 7 years. I can't even take it seriously. Like the Skip and Shannon thing, I can't even get into that. Like, they're too far gone. Like, I don't know. There's arguing about certain things. Skip always trying to put LeBron down whenever he can. Like, no matter what, he could even be talking about the Cowboys or something. And he's still in a you know, it's pretty funny because when you before I used to read the newspaper a lot. I still read the newspaper. I read the ones I have because I want to. Oh yeah, I remember that, and I have a lot of old newspapers. But now I read who writes the thing. Who was writing that at the time. Before I never did that. I never noticed the author when I was little. I just read. And it's funny because we were talking about the Last Dance, and honestly people watched that because of COVID and all the different stories that came out. I was like, most of those were in the newspaper. They really were. Now you didn't know some of the details, but like almost all those stories, the Krause feud, Jordan's mocking of Krause, Pippen's contract, Pippen maybe getting traded, all that was in the newspapers. And like, so Skip Bayless went from this. Skip Bayless used to write for the LA Times.
Right.
He's writing for some Dallas Morning News. I'm pretty sure Ani, he wrote for them. Obviously, he covered the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, and then now he's just this guy that's on TV now that's just bashing players. Like it's just like it doesn't. No. There's no credibility behind that when you used to be covering them like in a newspaper. I don't know. That's just my opinion on that. But it's like you said, guys. It's I don't think that's changing the talk TV during the day. There's a lot of it. It's a repetitive and I'm not into the bashing the players because you said, Chelsea, from the player standpoint, like they've never been better, but also they've never been scrutinized more. Like we didn't know about every little detail of a player until they got in trouble. Really, Like I remember
Yeah.
James Worthy got in trouble one time, and I was like, "What?" Like guys like James Worthy got arrested. You just didn't hear about what people were doing until something bad happened. Now it's like everything is being scrutinized. Let's change the subject. Speaking of scrutinized, Ani, did you have a chance to follow, what Camden did when they went down to play Columbus down in Miami with the, with their game? Were you able to watch that or follow that?
I didn't really follow. I know Columbus won, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I heard what happened when they went to North. I thought something may have happened when they went to North Carolina. I believe Camden did.
Yeah,
but I didn't hear anything Miami.
Yeah, well, they lost that game, and then that was on the 4th, and then they went back to Jersey and played that game against Don Bosco, which they won.
Right.
So Boozer had a big game. Boy, he played really well down the stretch, and they're playing good. And this week, they have some more big games. So they're going to play at the Hoop Hall. Ani, what are you looking forward to for Hoop Hall? Are you going to do anything? Is there anything in Texas you're going to, or anything that you're following in particular?
Just I have someone out there going to go cover a Hoop Hall for me. Because I ain't gonna pay for that that flight. then I'm potentially stuck. So we got some big games out here. I think like Pinkston going against Dallas Carter. You got Faith Family, kind of going to district. Just following like some of these teams that we do have in the Fab 50, like Amarillo. So I'm more so just covering some of these teams that are like in the bubble and from in Texas, and have a chance to move up, just like kind of keeping up with their playoff, who they're going to meet up with stuff. So that's where I'm really big on this week. Yeah.
Are you surprised that Beaumont United is doing as well as they did? Obviously, I started them pretty good. Like they're doing pretty good. Is that a surprising or they're right now? I have them. What are they? 19-1. So they're
19-1. Yeah, they're doing
1. So
like. Am I surprised a little bit? I thought without Arsenal, I know Wesley Yates has gotten a lot better. And, we got to see him at Pango's All-American Camp, won the top 60 MVP. But, he's improved as a leader. And he's really got those other guys like Portier and those guys just really rolling. The coach does a hell of a job with that group. But I did think without Arsenal, they were maybe losing something. But with Duncanville opting out of the playoffs this year and the 6A just being wide open, and just how good they're looking, beat Jonesboro, who's a really good team out of Arkansas, and Wesley Yates just playing at a level that he is, they have a chance of winning a state title this year. And that's crazy. Like they moved from 5A to 6A, and I'm like, oh man, they're not gonna they're not gonna be ready for 6A. Yeah. And then now we're looking at it, man, they could really three-peat. So I'm a little surprised because you lose a guy like Arsenal who's going to be, I think he's going to be in the NBA one day. You lose an NBA type talent. That always is hard, but they look like they just rocking and rolling.
Yeah, they're doing really well. As far as the Camden situation, DJ scored well, but they were down early and he has the ball in his hands a lot. He shoots a lot of threes. And it kind of, like you said, kind of almost like an NBA type of feel to it. Like they're going to get buckets back. Columbus scores. And it's like, hey, Camden just pushes it up and tries to shoot a three or get a quick bucket. Mm-hmm. It's not, they didn't have a lot of, hey, they're running this set. Let's try to get an inside bucket. They really didn't use our guy Bradshaw. Wasn't really a big factor,
Right.
And you got a guy 7-footer going to Kentucky, and it's like, I don't know. Again, they have new coaching. This is DG's, I guess, third coach. So, Malik Waynes, he's a young coach, and kind of showed in that game. Like, Columbus played pretty well, and now Columbus is going obviously to Hoop Hall, and Columbus, they got the Monday game. They got Sierra Canyons, which is coming off their big game against Wheeler. Ani, there was 5 big events in LA. Obviously, you can't get to all of them. And I wanted to ask you guys this because I've seen San Ysidro, and I asked both of you, San Ysidro is barely over 500 with JJ Taylor and Mikey. And at this event at the Galen Center was supposed to be originally at crypto.com, but I think cooler heads or wiser heads prevailed. Like that place is going to be completely empty. right?
Mm.
So
Right.
at the Galen Center, there might have been 3,000 people there. Like, is it because the novelty's wearing off, or because Mikey and or Bronny are not like the number one player in the country, or is it just over exposure? What's your opinion? I'll start with you, Chelsea. What's your opinion?
I mean, we've talked in the past about how LeBron was able to kind of fill out these arenas and stuff. I don't think anybody has the star power or the ability to do that anymore, at least not right now. So I know there's a lot of social media highlights of Bronny and Mikey and all these players. And it's fun. This is the era that we're in, social media age where everything's being recorded. I saw Kyle Kuzma tweet the other day about like, we're in this highlight culture where like the nuance of basketball is kind of like lost. So I just think that these kids can't fill out those arenas like that. And that's okay. So it was smart to not have it in crypto, because it's like all that stuff has to be paid for. You got to pay to turn the lights on, and it's just not worth it. So I think it makes total sense. And I don't think that even if Mikey or Bronny were number one in the country, that they were going to fill out even the Galen Center. It's just one of those things that, there's definitely a market for high school basketball and these games, and people have an interest in it. But is it going to be like an NBA game or just a sellout crowd? I don't see it. And I haven't seen that with any kid. And there's very talented ones. Some of these kids are lucky to fill out a high school gym. So this is what it is.
I think it's a mixture of two things, Ronnie, that you said. I think it's some overexposure. And I think it's also that they're not the top 3 or 5 guy in their class. Obviously, they're very marketable, but when you talk about Bronny James, every game he plays gets recorded, right? Every game there's a YouTube clip, a highlight, something. And then now we're getting to January into their senior year. They kind of are what they are. The next time you really may see some real hype is when they get into college, right? I just think right now they're what? They're like top 50, top 60 guys, depending on the outlet, maybe lower, maybe a little bit higher. There's been a clip. They have video clips, interviews after every game. At some point, you get tired of it. If Mikey Williams was number one, he would sell out. I think he could sell out if he was number one in the country. But I do think because he's not, and because we see something from him every game, win or loss, like people do get tired of that. And they're not going to pay. Because remember we saw in the summer, Ronnie, was it this past summer, the summer before, or Mikey playing the game and it was standing room only, like just for his game, and just thousands of people were there. I mean, we saw that, but now we're going 2 years later. It's like, okay, guys, like,
I've seen this.
Seen this. So that's
and like you said, they're like 8-7 or whatever they are, 9-8. It's
right.
Like, that's not that attractive.
And I go back with your question with Camden. From what I heard, I did see the highlights from the Columbus game and even some of the games. It is very it kind of reminds me a little bit of Cardinal Hayes with some of the issues that they have. Just when it gets real stagnant on the perimeter and just a lot of just shooting on the outside. Difference is, like you said, they do have a big man, a 7-footer. That's a 5-star guy. Right. That's a 5-star guy, and they're just not throwing it enough to him. Just making more of a lob guy than like, let's feed it to him. So I've been getting it. It reminds me similar of like Cardinal Hayes' struggle and why they get stagnant, and the record isn't as what they would love it to be.
Yeah, and they, I had them number 2, and I didn't have them number 2 because I really honestly thought if I had to seed them out or bet, I didn't think they're the number 2 team. But they just started later, and obviously they have the schedule, and they're going to have to rebound. And they got 2 big games. They got 2 big games at Hoop Hall. So they play Corona Centennial on Saturday the 14th, and then they come back on Monday and play Bishop Gorman. They're going to have to go 1-1. They're gonna, they could beat Centennial, they could beat Gorman. They're gonna have to beat Gorman. If they don't beat Gorman, their season's gonna be like, oh wait, what's wrong with Camden? You know what I mean? Like, or they're not that good. But I mean, they still got plenty of games. They did beat Don Bosco, which is a good team.
Dylan Harper.
So Sierra Canyon is actually playing pretty good. That game against Wheeler has beaten Centennial, but Sierra Canyon's actually playing pretty good. Ashton Hardaway had a good game when they had that comeback win. Bronny had 22 points. They don't have, like we said, the NBA future NBA guys like they've had the last few years, where you can see they have future NBA guys. They even had an NBA guy who didn't even play much, Christian Coloco, but like they don't have that type of roster right now. And they have a big matchup. They play Columbus on Monday, so those Monday games are Camden versus Gorman at 11 a.m. Eastern. Then Sierra Canyon plays Columbus at 1. Then Montverde plays Sunrise at 3, and then IMG plays Compass at 5. But those are the Monday game. Cardinal Hayes plays, as you mentioned, Ani. They play Imatep the night before. Roselle plays Paul VI, our number 1 team. Simeon coming off 2 big wins. Simeon plays Bishop Stepanek. Simeon's playing good. You know, I saw Simeon in Chicago, and I was like, they're okay. Just Ani, they just have the junkyard dog mentality. They're just refusing to lose. Like they're just not
really well coached.
Yeah, I mean, they do a good job. They play hard. They play together. Because you look at them, they're like, that roster's okay. That's a top roster. Then they're winning. They beat Cathedral. They had 2 back-to-back wins, and they actually played Kenwood tonight in Chicago. Big game this Tuesday night when we film. So there's some big games coming up. Want to ask you guys a couple more questions as we talked about the NBA All-Star voting. Hoop Hall is definitely the time. MLK, obviously, it's supposed to be a celebration of MLK. Sometimes we forget about that and we focus on basketball and all that. But then we start talking about the McDonald's game and the selection for the game, which will be in a couple of weeks. So the $1 million question is back to the same 2 guys. What? And I'll start with you, Ani, and then Chelsea, you could chime in. Do both of them make it, Mikey and Bronny, or does just Bronny make the McDonald's game? And then, Ani, what's going to be the reaction? Like, are people going to be like, yes, Bronny's in the McDonald's like his dad? Or is it going to be like, boo, no, he doesn't deserve it. He's not a top 24 guy.
Ronnie, I respect. I respect Bronny James and Mikey Williams. No disrespect to them. Yeah. Neither of them are McDonald's All-American players. And when you asked that, I was about to say both who. I thought there was 2 players we haven't talked about yet. No. We asked them, but 2 high major guys.
Is Bronny, if he doesn't make that game, that's going to be surprising to me, Ani.
Really? I mean, I can see why it could be surprising, but no. No.
Okay, Chelsea, what do you think?
I agree with Ani. I think they're too far, like in terms of just rankings alone. Like, the people that teeter, aren't they like at maybe the 25 spot? Maybe they take 12 each team and like, okay, I'm 28th in the country, I'm 30th in the country. But when you get to 50 and 60, like I don't think it would have a lot of merit if they put Bronny in the game, unfortunately.
Wow.
But I think that there's a possibility that it could happen because of his dad and stuff like that, but not because he's actually one of the top 24 or, however many kids that they're taking in the country. Because he's just not, great player, but he's not. So.
And look, if he played in the McDonald's game, I'm not saying he'll look completely out of place. He would be fine. Like, I think he'd be fine, but he does not deserve to be in there.
Got you. He doesn't deserve it. Like you say, if he was just another kid. So Chelsea, like you're big on this. If you had a son and he's close to, like you said, he's ranked 21, 24, 29, 31, 26, whatever. And Bronny was picking, he wasn't. What would be your reaction?
I mean, you'd obviously be disappointed because like you guys, or just like everyone else, we're following the rankings consistently, throughout the career and how people are progressing and bumping up and stuff based on performance. So if a guy never touches the top 25, there's just no way. So it would seem very rigged. It would seem very political, and basketball is political. So if he gets in, like I said, that's just how it goes. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not. It wouldn't be based off of basketball merit if he's been consistently a 49, 50 player in the country on both, on the AP and every single, ranking there is. For him to jump into, a game that requires just the top 25 in the country, top 24, that it's not right.
Correct. So the guy I could think about, and again, it goes back to the name, and it's the 2007 game, and only because it's one of the greatest classes ever. And Jai Lucas made the game. 5'10",
He did.
Houston Hoops, Bel Air High School in Houston. He played for Houston Hoops. Honestly, we know the name. I don't have to say his name. His name's Jai Lucas. And I'm looking at our database, the Ballislife database. ESPN had him 19. Rivals had him 43. And I remember that. I was like, he's the lowest dude I've ever seen make the game. And that class was good. There could have been another guy in there for him that was very deserving, you know? And so I think that's what I'm going to see with Bronny. We're going to see one day, like, you know, he made the game ranked whatever 46 or 61 or 39.
But you just gave 2 polls, Ronnie, and they're like so far off. What do we have Bronny right now in ESPN and in the other poll? Because 19 and 43 is a huge gap.
This is Ronnie's West Coast bias right now.
What is Bronny ranked right now on ESPN and on the other?
Okay, let me go look at it because I remember Jai Lucas 19 and 43. So let's go look at the others.
Yeah, but Ronnie, 19 and 43, that is a crazy gap. Most people are off by like 5-6 spots, maybe.
Because Chelsea, he was closer to 43. That's my point.
Yeah, he was closer to 43.
Well, I want to see where's Bronny at right now.
Bronny, let's go look. I'm looking at him. I'm looking because I memorized it. Bronny is 34th at ESPN right now. Okay. Let's go look at Bronny on 247. Oh boy, this is funny because we're gonna come back to this in a couple of weeks and talk about it.
We will.
Bronny's 39 and 247.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so at least it's a 5-spot difference. How do you have 23-spot difference?
Yeah, and then in Rivals, and I'm not sure Rivals' head scout has a McDonald's vote. I don't believe he does, but I mean Rivals is well known. So right now in Rivals, he's 61. That is Bronny, 61. And that's like more ballsy, you know what I mean? Like that's more like putting it out there. That's what you really think he is. You know what I mean?
What do you think is the most respected of these
polls?
Rankings? Yeah, what poll?
Like respected meaning who's the industry takes the most seriously, or who Bronny is where he should be?
Yeah, I mean, the industry takes more seriously, and you can even say what the players take more seriously. They might say, "Hey, I'm top 5 in Rivals," you know, like
in Chelsea. Honestly, the ones most people know ESPN because of televised games, the name. They want to be, you know, hey, ESPN has this guy ranked here. Some people tell me that I'm like, you know, I don't. I'm like, and you know, like, and so, you know, like it's one of them. It's one of them, you know. Rivals' name has been around. Now we're getting into this. Rivals is like Pepsi or Coke compared to vitamin water, right? Or something like that, right? That name is people known Rivals for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
I think most people look at the database. I think, Ani, you could correct me if I'm wrong. They're going to look at 247.
For sure.
Be like, hey, I'm going to go look at the profile, go look at that. And honestly, if you want to really look at the bros and see years and years, you should look at ours and really go dig deep in it. Obviously, it's not out there like that because it's not on TV. But to answer your question, Chelsea, I believe it is ESPN because of the visibility, right? And they got mostly NIBC teams on their telecast, and those teams are those players. And somebody just mentioned it the other day on Twitter, a well-respected guy. He's like, how did Simeon beat Imhotep and are still ranked behind Imhotep? Is it because Imhotep has better ranked ESPN players? You know what I mean? Like he put it out there. So you know, there is, like you said, Chelsea, there is political things. It's like any other sport. It's a business.
For sure.
These rankings are a business. Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see if he makes it or if he doesn't make it. My bet is you guys are saying no. I'm saying yes.
Well, I didn't know that he was, you know, 30 is teetering. 31. I mean, that's not that far off. I've been thinking that
you didn't think he was 30 coming in.
Yeah, I thought you guys were saying he's like 55. Then I'm saying no way.
He's at 30 still.
30 teetering, Ani. 24, 30.
Man.
Okay, I think he has more of a chance now. I kind of want to change my vote.
I'm keeping mine as a no.
Okay. Ani's a purist. Ani's a purist.
Ani knows how politics work, though. If they
I know.
I will be in that game.
Oh, I know. I get it. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he is. I'm just saying he doesn't deserve to be.
Yeah. based off of skill and talent. Yeah, and I think you're right.
I mean, but he could go there and still be fine. Like, you can get a guy that's 60th in the country and be in the McDonald's game. He could be decent, but I'm just saying it doesn't mean that he won't. I still don't think he would deserve it regardless.
Yeah. It's very interesting because he's just such a polarizing player. And, rankings have been around. We had an episode about that. Go check out our rankings episode. We talked to Clark Francis, Paul Van Cardy. We talked to these guys. It was good. A lot of information. And I don't think it's ever going to change. I think Chelsea, the depth of it, before it used to be like you had to order a newsletter or you had to subscribe to a magazine. You had to subscribe to like Hoop Scoop or something to get some really in-depth information. But I think now the rankings are even posted like on ESPN scroll bar. You know what I mean? So it's out there. Like, people know about it, and it's people are less informed about it than ever. But it's out in the public sphere more than ever. It used to be kind of a niche market, to talk about like where Kobe Bryant was ranked or where did he start in 9th grade, and that kind of thing was very niche market. You had to be a diehard or subscribe to some magazine or do something like that to kind of know. Now it's just like common knowledge, but the scope of it is all over the place. Like DJ Wagner's still the #1 player, like, and to a lot of people. And I think he is going to be, and kudos to DJ. I know he's under the microscope a lot. When he gets picked for the McDonald's game, and he is going to get picked, he's going to be the first father, grandson combo. That's pretty awesome. That's the McDonald's game's been around. Obviously, his dad is DeJuan, who was the 2001 National Player of the Year at Camden, and his grandfather's Miltz, who played in 1981. And he played on a great team, and he went on to Louisville and played in a few Final Fours. Was on their 86 national championship team. But we'll see how that goes. I think on that note, we'll wrap it up. I don't think we have any more crazy predictions. We were just enjoying ourselves, kind of just talking about a lot of various topics. It will be a good weekend. Hopefully, people kind of reflect a little bit on Martin Luther King and what he's meant to the country. I know we focus a lot on basketball and travel, and I'm glad, Ani, to your point, I'm glad I'm not going to Springfield right now. I'll be completely nothing against him. I love my guy Greg Persino. I've been in hoop hall. It's so cold.
It's right.
Cold. I can't even think. I'm just like, and it's so much, 5 hours there, then get back, and it's like, oh, now you got a runny nose and you're free. And I got so much work to do with those rankings. So next week, obviously, everything will be pushed back one day. We'll do the rankings on Tuesday. They'll come out after MLK Monday. Obviously, I can't do them on Monday because they'll be irrelevant a few hours later. Everything happens. So many good games on Monday. And then we'll come back on Wednesday if and when we do a pod. So we appreciate everybody listening to episode 149. Please like it, subscribe, share it. Obviously, we're on iTunes, Spotify, and on our YouTube page on the Ballislife Podcast Network. So until next time, Ani, we're out of here. Chelsea, we're out of here. Good luck in your next game. Chelsea, when is your next game?
Next week. We have big week. We have the Cup, which is like, if people aren't familiar with that, most leagues have like an in-season tournament.
Okay.
The way they do it is, single elimination, you do a draw, it's totally random, and it kind of just gives the lower teams with lesser budgets and less money just a chance to kind of compete for something. Like, most of these leagues in Europe and in general are very top heavy. You have a team with $1 million budget and a team with $100,000 budget. So, to give them opportunity to win something, since more times than not, the bottom team is not going to beat a better team in a best of 5 series. They do this cup. So we're playing Monday in the semifinals. If we win, we play Thursday in the championship. I need that bonus. I already have 3 cups with 3 different teams, so I need to go out with the bang. This is it, guys. So wish me luck. We'll see what happens.
We know you want that bonus. We know that's what you're gearing up for. That's funny. So yeah, that'll be on MLK Monday. Like I said, a lot of games this upcoming week. So we'll check you guys next time. But for now, we're out of here. Take care.